Hello, my name is Carina, and in this podcast, Break Fear, Find Freedom, I have conversations with people just like you who have broken their fear and found their freedom, whatever that may be. And shows you how to do the same. So sit back, relax, grab your coffee or your running shoes, whatever makes you happy, and let the fun begin. Oh, by the way, come take my hand and let's go. The door's opening now. Hello, everybody. Today I've got an awesome guest, Paul Cowan. Paul Cowan is a wealth of knowledge, and he's just does so many things. But for today, we are talking about procrastination. And that's something that's really close to my heart because I battle with it every single day. Hello, Paul. How are you today?
I'm good. And yourself?
I'm very good. Thank you. Paul, before we start, tell us a bit about Paul. Who's Paul in like five sentences? I know that's really difficult, right?
No problem. So I'm a father of two children. My wife's from Japan, from Tokyo, and I've been running the escape room and team building business since 2015. So I did have 11 members of staff. I've got a few less now. I also have a job working in the technology centre to do with car engineering, and then I do crypto investing. So those are some of the hobbies. And then I love learning, so I'm always learning things. And I create these mind maps, which you might have seen, Carina. And we know each other from a group hosted by Mark Joyner, who I've known for many years. We can maybe talk a little bit about that later as well.
Yes. Oh, I love Mark, and this group has been so beautiful because I've met so many beautiful people, one like you as well. And of course, crypto is also close to my heart, so maybe we can have another conversation about that.
Yeah,
okay. Before I go down some weird rabbit holes, let's come back to procrastination. Tell me a bit first about, this it's about breaking fear and finding freedom, right? And procrastination for me is a lot about fear.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, I've been reading a number of books just to prepare for this meeting, and there's one called Time Warrior by Steve Chandler, and he talks about this thing called the hagfish. I don't know if you've seen them, but they're not particularly pleasant fish. They're really ugly looking. They look a bit like an eel with this really horrible face. So if you scale up, it looks a bit like the big monsters out of Dune. And they're blind and they're slimy and they're in the deep water, and they basically dart into orifices of their prey and they devour them alive from the inside. And they said, this is a bit like procrastination in your life. If you allow it, then you basically have to try and kill it in your life. So that, and he talks about in this book that those two things for him are resentments and then worries about the future. So all fear is sort of future bound. If you're just in the present, it's very hard to have fear, but it's always thinking about the future and worrying about things that are going to happen in the future. Then it's also thinking about things in the past and resenting things in the past. So that's one area which he talks about. And then there's another guy called Neil Fiore. Let me just find his notes. And he talks quite a bit about fear. So let me just bring that up as well. I've got a big mind map here, so I'm just quickly scrolling through. So he talks about having compassion for ourselves. It's essential for overcoming procrastination. You don't have a character defect. If you've got fear, it's something which is common to humanity. All people have fear in their lives. And he talks about fear of failure, which is like, I'm worthless, I'm an awful person. And fear of being imperfect. Lots of people suffer from perfectionism. So it's difficult to accept yourself as you are. And you interpret this criticism and rejection as a threat to your grasp on perfection. So it demands this, you have this demand on you of perfectionism, which has this fear of failure, and it leads to more procrastination, and then you have more self-criticism, and then you have anxiety and depression. That leads to more or less of confidence. So it's like this negative cycle that just continues, where you have this sort of unrealistic expectations for yourself. And then that, like I said, they're all sort of, we're all human beings, and basically we've got to try and work towards things that are good, very good, or great, not try and have this idealized standard which doesn't really exist. And then he also talks about impossible expectations, which I guess also ties into that, but it's also, you have this feeling of overwhelm where you're trying to achieve these goals and you're trying to reach these difficult goals in the future. So he talks about finding your stretch zone. So it's a little bit higher than where you are, but it's not not it's it's a little bit harder than the standard, but not really hard where it's too high. You probably heard about the book Flow, which is by a guy called it's hard to pronounce, but I won't try and pronounce it. But yeah.
Mikhail see something, yes.
Yeah, we'll say Mikhail. And in that book, he talks about this sort of, if things are too easy, you get bored easily, but if they're too challenging, then you get overwhelmed and you find it difficult. So it's that sort of fairy tale where it's just in the middle, it's just right. So you want to try and hit that boundary. It's a little bit harder, so it challenges you, but it's not too hard. And that's when you get a state of flow where you're just working and it's enjoyable. And there's this guy called Stephen who talked about that, and he talks about all these athletes who do these extreme sports, and they have this state of flow. And if they don't have a state of flow, they would die, because they're doing all this, they're doing wind, they're doing this kite surfing, all sorts of things like that.
Thank you. Sure, there was a lot there, Paul. I just want to go back, or somewhere in between. You're talking about compassion. And I think a lot of us as human beings find it so difficult to do. It's quite an interesting thing how sometimes you can feel compassion for someone else, but when it comes to you, we're so hard on ourselves. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I agree. We tend to we treat ourselves the worst. So if we treated our friends like we treat ourselves, then we wouldn't have any friends anymore. So it's like this,
exactly right.
There's negative self-talk, and there's some tricks which some people recommend. So yeah, if you hear this voice in your head, you can make it sort of quiet, or you can make it into a silly voice, like a goofy voice or a Mickey Mouse voice. So it doesn't have the same power. You have this voice, and that's like an NLP technique where you take this voice and you make it less demanding. And some of it is just a case of just ignoring it. So it's a little bit like if you meditate, then they talk about it being a bit like clouds, where these clouds pass by, and you might have a dark cloud go by, but it does pass. So it's, you basically have to have the same treatment as like a meditation, where, you don't take it too seriously. You just say, lots of people think that these thoughts and feelings are themselves, but they're not. They're just they're coming at you, and quite often they're trying to protect you from something. So you can just say, "Oh, that's interesting," or "Oh, I don't agree with that," and you don't have to agree with everything it says. You can just treat it like a bit like a cloud, and you say, "Oh, that's a dark cloud." I don't really agree with that, and continue on. And like having a self-compassion, it's a love for yourself that you might have for a friend. You can imagine if you were going to talk to a friend or a loved one, then what would you say to them? And then try and say more of that to yourself. There's a lady called Marissa Peer, and she talks about having this I'm enough. So she puts it on her mirror and puts it around the building, so that you have this feeling that I am enough, and I don't need anybody else. And just thinking about, it's not just you having these problems. Sometimes you think it's just you, but it's it's millions of people having the same problems as you. So it's all common to humanity, these issues you're having. Yes.
Now, as you was talking about I'm enough, I was thinking about, because I think a lot of times it's about being rejected. I mean, if you go to a client, for example, and they reject you, it's like, oh my word, it's the end of the world. Or if you phone up a friend and you ask them for coffee and they don't have time, and then it's like, oh my word, it's the end of the world. And you mentioned Mark Joyner earlier, and I have to just quote him. I mean, where he says, abundance, 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 right? There's just so many people in the world, and if we can, and for me, once I actually came to that conclusion and realized that, wow, Mark, you're really right. There are billions of people in the world. If one person rejects you, it's not a big deal. So we're going back again to mindfulness.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts? I mean, because that's also, we have to be mindful continually, right? It feels almost like a hard slog, or is it?
Obviously, there's the book The Power of Now, you've probably heard of, where it's talking about you have all these ties to the past or the future, and it's really the only time you can make any changes is in the now. So it's and things like rejection, it's lots of time it comes back to these hurts from the past, where you've got these things that maybe you had when you were a child, and it sort of ties you back to some of these thoughts that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy. We have all these, we have these. Lots of these people have these beliefs which they've got from childhood early on in their lives, and it sort of just triggers these things within ourselves. But like you say, there is abundance out there, and if you get rejected of something, there's always other opportunities. And some of the books I've read, they talk about where it's like all these things are really, they're there to help you to grow. So it's like you just see it as that way, that everything's moving for you. And it's so something didn't happen and it's because there's a better thing down the line. So I was recently trying to sell my business and it fell through. So it means that someone else is going to come along who's going to have a, going to run the business better or have a better deal come along. And it's just treating it like that. It's frustrating at the time, but you just have to see it as something where it's a growth opportunity. And like most people, when they look back at their lives, it's those obstacles and difficulties they had to overcome, which has allowed them to get where they are. You probably know I've just had a transplant, my second transplant, and I've been on dialysis and all that sort of stuff. And I've had to deal with various challenges in my life. And I think, it's certain things they act as a catalyst. So when I first fell ill, that sort of got me into learning. I didn't really sort of read books before that, and then got me into learning, into personal development and making income for myself. And it's allowed me to go on and create various businesses and, just try different things, property investing, stock investing and crypto more recently. And and we get to know each other through that. So,
Yes. It's quite interesting how, most of the time it's like those so-called disasters. At the moment you're thinking, it's the end of the world, and then as you're going through it, you're growing, and when you come out, you realize it was really a blessing. I don't know how having a kidney transplant is like really huge, and having dialysis all the time is huge as well. But to be able to find the blessing there it's amazing. So your attitude is really great.
Yeah, I've been watching Seinfeld. I've just been watching it while I've been doing other things in the background, and they've just been on loop. And one of those is George Costanza's a guy in there, and he gets this person fired from his job because he sets fire. The busboy sets fire to something on the table, and he gets him fired. And then he goes to his house and he leaves the door open. He's there with this guy Kramer, and then a cat escapes and it turns out that. The person who got fired, that restaurant burned down, and if he'd been there, he would have died that day. So he's like thankful. And then the sort of cat comes back, and when he's looking for his cat, he finds a better job. So it's like all these things that look like disasters at the time, they come back to actually be a benefit. And then obviously with us, like a bit of a twist in the tail. But that's the sort of general concept, is that you don't know what's happening and you don't know what's going to come down the line. So you see something as a big disaster at the time, but then you don't know, it might actually turn out to be a lot better for you. And that's a good way to treat things, is that these things are moving you towards a goal in some way, and they're ways for you to grow. And you can sort of take a look at where you've got challenges and obstacles and arguments, then you can sort of use it to help reflect on yourself, have awareness for yourself. You can sort of evaluate what were my thoughts and feelings, and then what does that say about myself. Lots of the time it ties back again, like I said, to these things early on in life where you have these beliefs. Not often it's basically you've caused these things to happen because of something in your past, so unconsciously you've created these problems, and so it's this big tool for awareness that people don't really necessarily understand.
Yes. But and also it's also a big mindset. If we could just convince or just show even one or two people a day how their lives are really blessed, right? And whatever they're going through, they can find a blessing within it. Imagine what a big change we could make in the world. It would be pretty cool, right?
Yeah. It's a different sort of mindset, I suppose, and it's part of it is being around sort of, I suppose, this personal development mindset, and sort of being around people who are positive, and maybe have this mindset. And they say you're the sum of the people you hang around with. So if you hang around with people who are negative and just have they're criticizing and making excuses, then you're going to be more likely to do that. Whereas if you hang around with people who get things done and have a positive expectancy and generally sort of have a good outlook on life, then you're going to be more along those lines, I'd say.
Yes, and that's quite true, because if I think about my life and I think about where I am, like you go through and your friends change and your situation changes, and it's really true, because I can pinpoint them and say, that wasn't such a great period in my life, but I actually this time was better because I upgraded my friends, so I upgraded my mindset and I upgraded myself. Yeah. It's quite interesting. It's like a computer upgrade, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got sidetracked again. Let's go back to procrastination. Okay, tell me a bit about how do you deal with procrastination?
So there's a number of things I try to do. So we talked about, we talked a little bit about Mark Joyner, and he's got a thing called Simpleology, which allows you to put down your tasks. And also, sometimes if you've got a big task, that ends up being a problem because you've got this this sort of big task ahead of you, or you've got it a long way in the future, then you're more likely to procrastinate. Whereas if you break it down into smaller chunks, then it allows you to sort of work on the smaller chunks in sort of sections. There's an equation which is covered in one of the books, and that talks about, on the top you've got expectancy and value, and then on the bottom you've got impulsiveness and delay. So if you have high expectancy that you're going to be able to achieve your goal, so that's again if you make them smaller. Then also if you value your goal, if it's something that's important to you, it's going to be more motivated for you to do it. So it's something you want to do. Like, I don't have to tell my son to play Minecraft; he wants to do it, so it's very high motivation. Sure. Whereas like me doing my accountants, there's probably less motivation. So then you can sort of break it down and say, oh, okay, I'm going to do 30 reconciliations, or for example, you can also just try and set a time limit. So we talked about flow, where you can make it a challenge. You can say, okay, I'm going to try and do as much as I can in 30 minutes, and you set yourself sort of these false deadlines. I tend to work in smaller bursts because the impulsiveness is quite high for me, particularly if I'm doing specific tasks. So if I'm learning, then it's not a problem. I can spend hours learning and I don't need to take breaks. Whereas if I'm doing something that's less interesting, then I'll be more tempted to look at my phone or something like that. And then the top part of the equation is expectancy and value, and the bottom part is impulsiveness and delay. So if something's a long way in the future, then it's like, I don't know about you, but when I was at university, I used to be the night before something was due, I was up all night, trying to get it done. Lots of people are the same. So it's like you can make it so you can break down that bigger task and just say, okay, we'll break it into 10 tasks, for example, or what's a sensible way to do that. And you can do that in Simpleology. You can set a task, you set all the sub-tasks within it, and you just tick them off, and you get this sort of feeling of you get a small boost, I suppose, when you tick something off and get it done. And then the other thing is just getting started. Lots of the books talk about getting started and taking action. And you might have heard of Mel Robbins. She has the 5-second rule. So you count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then get started. Because the longer you leave it before you get started, the more you have all these self-talk in your head and all these arguments against yourself or reasons why not to get started. So there's a lot of good information about that, sort of just getting started. There's another book talks about the 3-minute rule, which is just try to get 3 minutes of work done, and then once you've got the momentum, they say an object in motion stays in motion. So it's a bit like that. If you get things started, and then things are going to continue. There's a book as well called Mini Habits or Tiny Habits. There's 2 books, Mini Habits and Tiny Habits, but the same sort of concept. You start with something small, and then you make that habit, and then you can sort of increase it. So, say you're trying to keep fit, you could just say, I'm going to do 5 press-ups, and you do 5 press-ups, and then once that's a routine, then you're going to want to do more, and you're welcome to do more than the 5, but as long as you do the 5, then you've reached your goal. So you might end up doing 50 press-ups, but you start with the 5 and you just do it every day. Then it's there's a graph again there, which is it ties back to how easy it is and how motivated you are to do it. Then if it's easy and you're motivated, you're going to get it done. Whereas if it's hard and you're not motivated to do it, then you make it smaller, and that's going to make it basically within the chart you can get it done.
That sounds very good. And then how do you deal with your phone? Because I know my phone, especially the notifications, it's like it's just this. I'm sure it's an addiction, right? You just have to see what's going on, and really, it's really random because you don't know who these people are most of the time. Unless it's people like in our group, then it's worth it to go because you can possibly work through that. But most of the stuff is random, like a TikTok random video, for example. How do you deal with that?
That's the big challenge, is your phone. It's a challenge for most people. Mel Robbins again talks about that, is basically don't have your mobile phone in your room. As first thing in the morning, most people go through this she talks about genius versus robot. So you just get in this robot mode where you pick up your phone, you go through a sequence. So I'll check my emails, I check the news, check Facebook, and check my Facebook accounts, go to WhatsApp, see if there's anything there. You just go through this routine, and you're basically letting the control of your life being in the hands of other people. So instead of that, you say the night before, what can I do that's going to move me towards a goal? The first thing in the morning, you spend 30 minutes working towards that goal. And then one of the other books talks about basically to gain an extra 10% of your life. If you turn off your notifications on your phone and on your computer, you'll gain an extra 10%. So basically within a year, you'll gain an extra month basically every year by just turning off your notifications. So yeah, just try to avoid all this sort of stuff popping up in your phone. There's another book which basically says about try to uninstall the apps like Facebook and Twitter, and just go in via the website, because if you make things harder to do, then you're less likely to do it. Whereas if it's very easy, you're just going to go straight away and do it. I don't particularly do that myself, but it's something you can do. You can have a very bare bones phone that just has the basic stuff you need to do, and you can set yourself certain times. You say, okay, I'm going to get like 2 hours of work done, then I'm allowed to go in and look at my phone, and you just say, I'm going to spend half an hour looking at my notifications or whatever it might be. Sometimes it's not as easy. You might run a business and you have things like that. So the way to handle that is really have separate accounts. So like on my phone, I can have 2 Facebooks, 2 WhatsApps, all that sort of stuff. So I can limit on there. And then there's also apps. There's an app called Freedom app, which allows you to set limits. So you can say how maximum time you can spend on there. And you can also click a button. It will just stop all the distracting sites and all of the apps you shouldn't be using. So it can stop WhatsApp and TikTok and YouTube and Facebook. And you can say for the next hour, I'm going to cut off all those things and just work, or however long it is. So I suggest you try and work in bursts of, you might have heard of Pomodoro, which is usually around sort of 15, 20 minutes. So you can do 20 minutes up to 50 minutes. If you go above 50 minutes, it starts to get challenging. You have these diminishing returns. So you could do somewhere around between sort of 20 to 50 minutes and then take a break. Try not to go on WhatsApp most of the time and that sort of stuff, Facebook. But because often you say, I'm only going to do this for a minute, and you end up spending like an hour, 2 hours. I talk to my friend on WhatsApp, and it's we might talk for a couple of hours sometimes. And, so yeah, if you're there's a book by Cal Newport, which is all about deep work, which is talking about setting aside these periods and just focusing on that, and try to avoid as many distractions as possible. So tell your kids, you're going to be working, turn off your notifications. You can use airplane mode on your phone and just turn it on. And it's just trying to be more efficient. So when you are working, just work. And then if you are going to spend some time for fun and play, that's good as well. Neil Fiore, who wrote The Now Habit, talks about scheduling time in your calendar for fun and activities. So like every Sunday morning, you might go for breakfast with your kids, or you might go to cinema, and schedule those in. And you can also just schedule in some fun time in the evening. It might be an hour with your partner doing something other, or going for a meal. And then if you schedule those, it gives you an incentive. You can schedule other stuff in as well, and then that later down the line you're going to reward yourself. You can also reward yourself with something just small, like if I get 2 hours of work done, I'm going to go and just going to go and get a smoothie or something like that, or I've got this dark chocolate and that sort of stuff. So yeah, those some of the ways to try and avoid it. I mean, it's something, like I said, most people have a challenge with a phone. I do as well. So it's just when I'm working, I try to use these apps to just block things off. The new Samsung has a mode as well where you can set a limit for your apps. So I set my news app to be 30 minutes per day, and TikTok I've got for an hour a day and that sort of stuff. You can block it. And with the Freedom app, you can set someone else to have the password. So because quite often you can just, if you've got the app and you've got the code to override it, you might just override it. So if you give your partner the things like, this is supposed to block a bit, but if it's an emergency, then I need it, then you need to, the other person puts in a code. It stops you from overriding it.
That's clever. That's clever. It's so bad that we can't take accountability for ourselves. It's become like such a thing that we need people to help us with that, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, okay, sure. That was a lot of information, but I know that you do mind maps. When did you start doing mind maps? And that's probably and why did you start doing mind-based? Just out of
So, I mean, I don't do traditional mind maps. Mind maps were invented by Tony Buzan. Unfortunately, he's passed away, but a great man who sort of pioneered these techniques for mind maps and memory techniques and things like that. And his ones are more colourful and they just have keywords. Mine tend to be more thorough. They go into all the stuff and, you know, maybe too much detail, but I do include some pictures as well. Like I've got a picture of that fish I was talking about, and I've got some little bits I want to remember, and then I use capital letters to highlight certain things, or put things in bold that I want to particularly remember. And then when I look back, I say, oh, that's particularly important, you know, and then it just helps me when I'm looking at it. So at the moment in front of me, I've got a mind map with, you know, various books I've summarized, and I've got them all to hand. And I started at university, so it was probably, I'm on 45 now, so it was probably when I was about, I think it might have been college, so it was probably around sort of 17, 18, I started doing mind maps. And I've worked for a mind mapping company here in the UK, so I've done live mind mapping events. I went to a highways agency event and did those up on the screen, and as they talk, I mind map. And it's very useful for things like where you have a round table, then I can put all the things on there and do that. Lots of times a standard presentation, they've got the PowerPoint anyway, so it's not quite so useful. But I just find it's a way to, Tony Buzan calls it radiant thinking. So it's rather than linear thinking, which is like, you know, just point 1, point 2, point 3. It's a bit more like your brain works. Your brain has all these synapses all over the place, and it's linked all together. So you think of a picture or you think of a sound, it reminds me of all this other stuff. You know, it's a bit like Google. You think of a dog, and there's all this, you know, stories of dogs, or dogs that have, you know, dog you might have, or dogs you've seen recently, and all this stuff triggers off. And so it's a bit like that. Yeah, that's what I quite like about it. And you can add stuff to it quite easily. So you can move things around and make use of that sort of stuff. So I don't use as many colours and pictures as the traditional way, but I've been doing it for some time, and
it obviously works because you like, you're a mind, you're like, you have so much knowledge, and it's like all at your fingertips. So that's pretty cool.
I mean, the other thing is a thing called Zettelkasten, which is a German system, which is they use just a way of, it's a bit like, think of Wikipedia, where you have all this stuff and it's interlinked together. And the way to do that is you'd read something, and then what do you remember about the book? You would put that into a document, and then you would link stuff together. So if it talks about, like in these books, they talk about other, they give quotes from other people, then you would link all those together, and it becomes like a second brain. So you have this brain outside of yourself which you can refer to. And I mean, it's fresh in my mind a bit because I've been doing some of the stuff, but it does help just to, it's a bit like putting things around, and again, the pictures and colours sort of help too, and it's more about like how your brain works. So I do tend to, if I'm sharing with people, I do it in a more linear fashion as well, so you can convert a mind map into like bullet points where it has the hierarchical type structure. It can be quite useful as well. It can be a little bit unwieldy because this one's quite big, so just moving around it is quite so if I want to go to a particular bit I want to find, that can be a bit challenging at times.
Oh, okay, that's cool. And I know that you're going to have a link, right? We're going to have a link, so anybody can just see this beautiful mind map and then go and check out the books and everything. So it's very exciting.
And I'll link to, there's a guy called Brian Johnson. He's got a site called Optimize, and they've got lots of free content on there. I think they're taking lots of content and making it free. And this is like where I've got lots of book summaries from. So I've read or listened to about 500 book summaries over the years, and I've got like a master mind map of like concepts of things. And this one's just to do with procrastination. But I've also got some other books I've summarised as well, and some training courses. So what I'll try and do is put it all together, and we'll put it in the show notes for this episode, and people can go and download it and take a look. And I'll try to take me probably a couple of days just to make that available, and like I said, I'll convert it into a Word document as well, so people have got that. And then, like I said, it's lots of good books and lots of people to refer to where you can go and check, if you like particularly what they're saying, go into more detail. You probably have heard of Stephen Pressfield. He's written 3 books, which is The War of Art, and one called Deep Work, and there was one other as well. And I quite like what he talks about. I'll just bring it up in a second. You see here. So where we were talking about fear and things, he talks about resistance, and he says the more important a call or action is to our soul's evolution, the more resistance we'll feel towards pursuing it. I think he talks about in the War of Art as well, where it's if something's like, you're something that's debasing humanity, then you're going to find that quite easy. If you want to create like a pornography site or something, you find that quite easy.
Yes.
If it's something that's going to basically, it's part of your soul evolution, also the world's soul evolution, you'll find there's more stuff come against you. If there's things that are not so useful, you're going to find easier to do. And he talks again about you're not experiencing this stress because you're experiencing this because you're a human. He talks about a common humanity as well. Most people don't focus on what they have is common with others, especially when they feel ashamed or inadequate, rather than framing their imperfection in light of a shared human experience. They're more likely to feel isolated and disconnected from the world around them when they fail. So yeah, it's just been reviewing his work, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, I like his stuff now. And I'd like just on that note, do you think that's why the accountability probably helps so much with procrastination? What do you think? Because I mean, if you've got someone calling you today, if you say, okay, I'm writing a book at the moment, okay, and it's one of those, it's a difficult book because it's a memoir. Anyway, that's besides the point. But and I say, okay, I'm going to finish the book and I'm going to write so much, and then, well, hey, life happens, right? And things happen, and this happens, and you have to do this, and you have to do that, and at the end of the day, you know what? I have to admit, there are excuses, right? So if I've got someone that I have to be accountable to, it's probably easier to get through that procrastination and to actually get the work done. What are your thoughts on that?
I think, like we talked about earlier, having deadlines helps you. So you can create these deadlines. You'll say, I'm going to set myself half an hour to get as much done of this task done as possible, or you might say, I think it's going to take 2 hours and try to, and a little bit like that. If you have somebody you're accountable to, it might be people who work with you, or you have like an accountability buddy. I've been doing this public speaking course recently, and we would meet once a week, and we just set up so it gives you the incentive to actually get some work done, so that when you meet, you don't feel like you've let the side down because you haven't done your bit. So again, it does help you to do that. And it can also be you could have a progress meeting with your staff or with your manager, and you can set these up just to give you a reason to get things done. You can also, for you might have a book publisher who wants things done by a deadline. So that's another way to get things done. And with your publisher, you could say, can we have a monthly update where I update you on where things are? So it gives you sort of every month you're trying to get stuff, or every 2 weeks it might be, you're going to get stuff done and say, this is what I've got done. I mean, it still does rely a bit on you sort of telling the truth, because you could just say, I've done this, and you've not really done it. And so it does allow you to do some of that sort of stuff. But I think it can help getting something like that done. And also having accountability yourself. So it's thinking, I'm the sort of person who, when I commit to do something, then I'm going to get it done. My old coach, Ed Dale, he would talk about that. Most of these people on the course, they're committed. They bring their kids to school. They don't say, I'm going to pick you up from school and then not turn up. And it's like, but they don't do the same commitments to themselves. So they commit to their church or their school or all this sort of stuff, and they say they're going to get stuff done and get it done. But when they commit to themselves, say, I'm going to get this done, they don't get it done. So it's like having this self-love yourself and saying, I'm going to get this done. And then as you get more done, you build the pathways in your brain to get more done. So it's like you stop making excuses, and you have these sort of tracks that make excuses, less of that and more of the getting things done. And you say, when you get it done, you can say, I got it done. That's the kind of person I am. I get things done when I say I'm going to do it. And you build this belief in yourself that, when I say I'm going to get things done, I'm going to get things done. And lots of things, it's stuff where I might be saying stuff I'm not always so good at. I know you're a writer. There's a quote from Stephen King you might quite like. And he talks about the muse. And he says, there is a muse, but he's not going to come fluttering down into your writing room and scatter creative fairy dust all over your typewriter or computer station. He lives in the ground. He's a basement guy. You have to descend to his level. And once you get there, you have to furnish an apartment for him to live in. You have to do all of the grunt labor. In other words, while the muse sits and smokes cigars and admires his bowling trophies and pretends to ignore you, he may not be much to look at. that Muse guy. He may not be much of a conversationalist. What I get on mine is mostly surly grunts, unless he's on duty, but he's got the inspiration. It's right that you should do all the work and burn all the midnight oil, because the guy with a cigar and the little wings has got a bag of magic. There's stuff in there that can change your life. He says, I should know. That was from Stephen King. As you know, he's written lots of books, and he writes every single day of the year, even on his birthday, even on Christmas Day, he writes. So he has this routine where he gets up and he gets it done. So yeah, it's like building his habit, I suppose. And I think if you've got something you do every day, that can be quite useful. And in a specific time, it builds this sort of habit. The more you do it, the more easy it's to do. So you say between the hours of 10 and 12, I write, for example, and then you do it, you put it in your calendar and you say, this is the time I get it done, whatever it might be. And you just do it day after day. And then it's like this habit. So it's like you're not reliant on your feelings, on feeling happy or, having this motivation. Lots of the books talk about, basically people are trying to look for motivation and they get started, where it's the other way around. It's the feeling comes from the action. So you do the action and then the motivation comes, or the happiness comes from actually getting stuff done. You don't wait until you're happy and then get started, or wait till you're motivated. It's just doing that small amount. So it's like we said before, you do a 3 minutes, gets you started into it, or you do a Pomodoro, you do 20 minutes, then take a break. And it's like, depends who you are and how easily you are distracted. You might start with 15 minutes, and then once you can do 15 minutes easily, then you might move to 20 minutes. And like I said, you probably don't want to go above 50 minutes in most occasions. Occasionally you might really get into a flow of something, and especially if something you enjoy, you're going to find it a lot easier. But like I said, for me, learning, I can spend doing these mind maps and list of things. I can spend like a couple of hours without a break. Or if I'm at an event, I feel I have the energy that comes. And that's a good indicator of what you're good at, or what you should be doing. Is if the energy comes, then it means that's probably something you should be doing. It's like, for you, it's probably writing, whereas for me, it probably wouldn't be.
Yes, it's funny. Like it is that thing. Once you have to get started, you think, I've got to write. I've got to write. But instead, you go, this is exciting. Let's just do it, and you just get down and started. And before you know it, 3 hours have gone, and you think, wow, it feels like 5 minutes. But it's just that it's a mindset again. Mm-hmm. So would you say procrastination is like a mindset?
I'd say it is, where it's again, it becomes a bit of a habit, I suppose. Yeah, the more you do it, the more you procrastinate. Then and lots of it is just these common problems which people encounter. So hopefully, if you were to look at these trainings, another area, one of the biggest things people give a reason for procrastinators is they're tired. So people aren't getting enough sleep. They might, you should be getting at least 8 hours for most people, and you might be getting 5 hours sleep. Then it's obviously going to feel tired and not want to do stuff. So if you're getting basically your fundamentals right, if you're eating healthily and you're getting some exercise and you're getting to sleep on time, then that's all going to help. These like fundamental things are really useful in all areas of personal development, really. If you have the basics, your foundation set right, then that's going to make things a lot easier. So it's like, just regularly getting some exercise is going to help feed your brain. And your brain actually uses, I think it weighs 3% of your body, but it uses 30% of the energy. So just what you eat is going to feed that energy. If you're eating sort of processed food, lots of sugar, then it's gonna weigh it down. So eat well to perform well is the sort of motto, I suppose.
Yes. The basics are really important. I'd like to ask you, with all this, okay, there's so much, and it's really easy if we dial it in, right? Do you think you found freedom?
I'm fairly free most of the time.
Whatever it means to you. It's a broad question, right?
Like I said, I'm trying to sell my business at the moment and see if that goes through. I've got a good relationship with my wife. We've been married 20 years, just had our anniversary recently, a 20-year anniversary.
Nice.
And I've got my 2 kids. I mean, we all have challenges and things in life, and my health's been a challenge over the years, but I feel I do things because I want to do them rather than I have to do them most of the time. I still got a little day job. I do 3 days a week, and I've got some new stuff I'm working on, and excited about getting some things done there, so creating some new courses. And I'm not always super efficient myself. It's just sometimes it's a case of do as I say rather than I do sometimes. But I try to improve and read about things and just implement things in my life. And you go through phases, I suppose, where sometimes it's easier than others. And but I think generally I feel pretty free most of the time. I don't have this sort of negative self-talk going on in my head all the time. I've meditated for a long time, and I'm working for a course at the moment, which it's called Create Your Destiny with William Whitecloud, which is quite interesting. And it's talking about using your intuition and train your intuition to tap into that sort of stuff. So I've got a call a bit later to do with that. And I'm always learning and doing things which I enjoy, and try to just focus on the areas I enjoy. I've got a PA who helps me do some of the things that are more boring. So she responds to emails and does my reconciliations, and I've worked with her for about 5 years, something like that. So try to focus on what you're good at and get other people to do the things you don't enjoy or not so good at. Sort of tends to help.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Paul, where can people find you?
Well, good question. I've got a course I'm working on, which hasn't. I've got foremostcrypto.com, which is the site I'm going to start working on and building out. And then, as we said, I'll share a link which will allow you to just sign up and get these mind maps, and then I'll share some interesting things on there. If people want to follow up and keep in touch with me, that's a good way to get hold of me. Is through that sort of way. So I've got various different social channels. I tend to have different channels for different things. I've got one for mind mapping, a Facebook account for that, and I've got one for affiliate marketing, and then I've got new ones to do with cryptocurrency. And so I aim to start doing some more videos, YouTube and TikTok. I've just been working on NFT projects, so I've been learning all about that the last couple of weeks, just diving deep into that. So I hope to do a course all to do with NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens. So like you said, we maybe talk about cryptocurrencies and all that sort of area in the future.
Yes, I'm very excited. I think we need to set up a time and talk about NFTs and cryptocurrency and how we can actually get into it. And I won't even go down there because then it will be another 3 hours. So that's something to look after, people. Look forward to, yes.
I'll maybe share one more thing as well, which is it's called this implementation intentions, which is quite useful. So you basically have an if then. So if you know that something is a roadblock for you, then you can set in advance an if then else. So he talks about the Greek myth where you had the sirens, and ahead of time he got bound to the ship, and then all his sailors, they put stuff in his ears so they couldn't hear the sirens. So that's an example of thinking in advance where the problems are going to be, and then also putting if I'm going to be sailing into the sirens, then I'm going to put something in my ears so I can't hear them. So you take an inventory of what you do, what you procrastinate on, and then you have these pre-decisions which are put in place, which is quite a good way to do it. So you could say, if I feel tempted to use my Facebook when I should be working, then I'm going to turn off my Wi-Fi or something like that. So
I like that. That's brilliant, actually.
Yeah.
There's so many things.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Paul. That was awesome. But before we go,
I think
I'd like to ask you, what change do you want to be in the world?
Well, so my internet is unstable. As you know, I've had some health challenges, and part of my idea is to help people who also have challenges. So they may have health challenges themselves or in their family, and be able to, through cryptocurrency and other ways of investing, be able to provide for their family. So I want to basically leave a legacy for my family. I'd like to have a sort of shorter life than other people probably. So I want to leave them a legacy so that they can go off and do what they want to do and have the right education, so we can hire trainers and they can have a good legacy behind them. So I want to provide people that opportunity, both through personal development and through learning about investing, that sort of thing. They say only 40% of people in America have some sort of investment, so stocks and shares or property or crypto. Only sort of 40%, so it's only 60% don't have any sort of long-term investments, which is obviously a problem, because compound interest works against you. If you've got money in the bank, it's just you're losing money year on year because the value of money becomes less and less. So you need your investments to be more than the amount you're losing through appreciation, that sort of thing, where you have this money printing.
Yes. I heard just also quickly I heard a stats thing yesterday. In 2019, apparently the four biggest banks in the US, they made I don't know, I think it was about $18 billion just on people having on interest on
credit cards and overdrafts.
Credit cards and overdrafts. Yes. So that just blew my mind.
Yeah,
anyway,
lots of people they got money. They might be investing, but then they got credit cards. So it's like it's no point getting an investment returns you 5% when you're paying 18% on a credit card, for example. You want to be paying off your highest levels of interest first, and you can use credit to help you do things, but you've got to be careful about doing that. So obviously, a mortgage is a credit. I'm just remortgaging my house to get some more investment money. At the moment, I've got an investment property which has been remortgaged because if you think about the return, the amount of interest you pay on there is quite low because I'm on a fixed rate. It's about 3%. Whereas if I can make 5% or higher, it's better to invest that rather than just be paying off the mortgage in that way.
Oh yes, for so many things. Okay, Paul. Before we go into another rabbit hole, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for all these procrastination tips.
No problem.
And we will set up another time. So we'll listen and watch out and subscribe to the channel so that we can talk and you can learn more about cryptocurrency with Paul, because that's a big exciting, and in NFTs, that's a very exciting subject as well. Thank you so much for procrastination, and everybody else, watch out for the mind maps, and let's stop procrastinating and start creating the life of our dreams, right? Thank you so much, Paul. We'll chat soon.
Thanks, Carina.
Okay, see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening, and thank you for listening right to the end. Now, if you want to know more about breaking fear and if it's keeping you stuck, check out the quiz. The details are below. Subscribe so you can hear some more of this delicious conversations, and then watch out for my book, The Clank of Chains, which is coming out very soon. Thank you again for being here, and we will see you next time. Bye.